In today's show, we're going to talk about PowerApps Pay-as-you-go licensing. So the idea here is I want to do two things. One is go over what it is, where it's applicable, how one of my customers is using it, just kind of make sure you understand how it works and how it compares to the other licensing options. And then two, we're going to go through my tenant and actually set it up. So configure the Azure side, figure the PowerApps side, and make sure you understand how to bolt it all in, because it's a little more tricky than you probably expected. So, but first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today, PowerApps Pay-as-you-go licensing. And just a quick note, right? If you're like, hey, I don't need the blah, blah, blah. I just want to see how it all works. Then remember down below in the description is links to the different chapters and different sections of the video. So you can just skip ahead. But hopefully you're just going to stay for the whole story. So the whole story being is that what I want to do here is I want to kind of talk you guys through what is pay-as-you-go, why you might be interested, how one of my customers is using it, and how it kind of fits in with the other types of licensing. With the reminder, right, that I am not a licensing expert. I am not Microsoft. These are all just my opinions. So, don't take this as a gospel, even though I'm completely right. Okay, so that's one. And then once we get done with that, then we're going to switch over to my environment where we're going to set this up in Azure. I'm going to walk you through that and kind of show you, the process. For me, it was a little tricky because I have access to like 30 different Azure environments, and it took me a little bit of trial, a little this, a little that. When I set up for a customer, we just got it on the first try, so it's a little easier if you have a simpler Azure environment. But anyway, we'll talk about setting it up in Azure. And then once you set up in Azure, then you have to connect that to PowerApps, so these billing policies, so how to do that. And then, where all the pieces fall in there. So do a little bit of the mechanics. They're not hard. There's just some places you've probably never been before. So that's why I kind of went through all that. So anyway, that's enough of the blah, blah, blah. Let's switch over to my desktop and start talking about this. All right, so what the heck is pay-as-you-go licensing? So the idea here, maybe we'll go over the little pricing page to help us here. All right, is there's three different ways that a user can get a license, more specifically a premium license, but sometimes you need just a basic license too. And so where this comes up the most often, right, is you want to use a premium data source like SQL or Dataverse, one of those in your app. And so, while with Office 365, which is where most of us get our licenses, we have free licenses or included. Those are just for standard apps, so apps that use things like SharePoint. So you want to do SQL, you want to do Dataverse, you need a premium license. So to get to a premium license, you need one of three licenses, right? Or there's three different ways you can do that. So we can either do what we call app passes, right? So this is a per app plan. So the idea here is that for every user that you want to share this app with, you're going to buy them this $5 license, right? Remember, these are retail prices. You probably pay something different. It's fine, whatever. Maybe you pay these. I don't know. I'm not worried about the pricing. I'm worried about the concepts. But so the idea with the premium license is you need that, an app pass. And so if you want to share the app with 10 people, then you share the app with 10 people, you buy 10 app passes. And so they have access to that app via an app pass for the month, right? And so that's one way to get it. Now, another way it might be is, hey, I got a bunch of users, I've got a bunch of apps, and so I know that Chewy needs access to 7 premium apps. So I don't want to buy Chewy 7 app passes. I just want to buy Chewy 1 per user license. And so then that lets Chewy use unlimited premium apps, right? Across different environments. It doesn't matter. Chewy's account, Chewy at PowerApps911.com can log into all the premium apps he wants. And it's all just covered under this one license that we assign to him, right? The per apps, we assign those. We say, hey, this app is shared with 10 people. It needs 10 licenses. We just kind of assign those in bulk. We don't tie those to users. Per user, we tie to a user. So those are licenses we've had for a long time. And so what Microsoft released a while back was this idea as a pay-as-you-go plan. And so the idea with the pay-as-you-go is that maybe you want to have unlimited users have access, but you don't want to pay for unlimited users because in reality, they're not using it all the time. So this is one of my customers, right? They built this app for ordering their services, and they want to share it with all of their customers. And so they might share it with hundreds or even thousands of different people. But for the most part, most of those people will not use the app every month, or none of those people will use it every month, if I had to guess. And, some of them might never even use it. So what they can do is they can set that app up to use a pay-as-you-go plan. So they say, hey, this app is going to use pay-as-you-go. We've shared it with 1,000 people. That doesn't matter. But what it's going to do is every unique user that uses that app every month is going to use a license. So in their big ordering month is June. I'm making that up. I have no idea what their big ordering month is. But in their big ordering month, they might get 200 people that use it. So their pay-as-you-go plan will say boom, 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 right? 200 user licenses, no problem. That'll get billed on their Azure accounts. Great. The users were none the wiser. They all had access, no big deal. July, everyone's on vacation. Party, yay! Literally no one uses the app in July. They all still have access to it, but because no one uses it, their Azure bill is going to be $0 that month for that particular app, right? So what you're able to do is only pay for the actual consumption. Now, and how does that differ if they'd done the per app license? So if they wanted to share it with 1,000 people, then they'd have to buy 1,000 per app licenses, and they would just buy those, and so they would pay for those every single month, right? So in June, it would have been cheaper for them, right? Because, the license cost is about half, or not about, it is half. So they'd be like, oh, that's much cheaper in June. But in July, they would have paid the same exact amount as they paid in June with a per app licensing, right? Because it would have been $5 per user, even though literally 0 people used it. So this is where pay-as-you-go really makes sense for this particular customer, right? Because they have these varying amount of usage of it, and they don't want to try to manage that every month on their own. So they just set it up as pay-as-you-go, and they can take advantage of it. Other scenarios you might use pay-as-you-go is if you're trying to kind of get a feel, right? You don't know what your usage pattern is going to be. You don't want to go subscribe to a bunch of these app passes and set those up and buy this for a bunch of people. You just kind of want to put the app out there and start using it. And then maybe you find out from your usage pattern, like, oh, you know what? We would be better off to use the app passes because everyone literally uses it every month. Okay, great. Change your licensing. Or maybe you kind of put it out there and then you realize you've just got a handful of users that are using all your apps. And so you put those handful of users on per user, and the onesie twosies are still consuming per app. You have options there. Now, one of the things that was interesting, my customer asked, I thought you guys might be wondering, you can mix and match these licenses, but what it is you could have a app that is licensed so that it is covered by pay-as-you-go and the per user, right? So these two can be mixed and matched, or these two can mix and match, but you can't have both app passes and pay-as-you-go on the same app, right? It's a one or the other in that model. So that was a question they all had, so I want to throw it out here. Reminder, I don't give official licensing guidance. These are just my opinions. So take them for what they're worth, but go read the documentation and you can agree with me also. Hang on. While I was recording, I realized I kind of didn't say one thing I meant to. And so the one thing I meant to say was that when you're setting up this licensing, so pay-as-you-go, that is set at the environment level, right? So you create an environment and you tie it to the pay-as-you-go licensing, which you'll see in the steps later, right? But I want to call out, here I kind of implied that you were deciding if an app was pay-as-you-go or per app, like at an app level, but it's really an environment. And so you'll see that you have to create a new environment to do this with because you can't use your default environment. So you're going to create an environment, you're going to hook it up to pay-as-you-go and define it a billing policy, and then put the apps you want to be pay-as-you-go into that environment. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense now, it'll make sense as you get through the rest of the video. But I wanted to call that out, was that it's not like pay-as-you-go, you just go like onesie, twosie apps. It's you pay-as-you-go on different environments, and that's how you control which ones can consume this and which ones you can't. So anyway, back to what I recorded earlier. Just wanted to kind of sneak this in here because I felt like this point was missing. So, bye. Okay, so that is how the pay-as-you-go licensing works. Now, there's a bunch of nuances. You've probably got a bunch of questions. So one of the things I want to point you all to, right, is if you come over here, I will put this link up there or down there. I don't know. The link is somewhere that you can click on it. Anyway, in here, I recommend that everyone comes and reads through all this stuff. It covers the setup stuff. It covers the licensing. It also down here, like the issues and frequently asked questions. So they kind of cover some of those weird one-off questions that you probably are thinking about. Well, what if Bobby has this and Susie has this? What happens? There's a lot of that covered in the frequently asked questions. Another piece of this we want to talk about, so the metering. So we just kind of covered the licensing metering, right? How that works. That's that total unique users each month. Now, that is one of the 3 meters, right? The second meter is your Dataverse consumption. So when you create the environment, it comes with 1 gig of Dataverse storage space for free. If, as part of pay-as-you-go, if you go over that, then there are different usage fees over here for using additional storage. And so like the customer I set up today, they are not using Dataverse at all. So when we created their environment, we did not provision a Dataverse database with it. So their storage usage is basically 0, and there's almost no chance they'll ever have a licensing fee. But if you're using this in conjunction with Dataverse, then you're going to want to, anticipate some database storage cost as well. The third piece down here, the request. So the number of API calls that you can do. So you can see it's a 6,000 limit. These are not being enforced today. That's a pretty generous number. I don't think they're going to be a problem for the majority of you anyway. But just keep in mind that, if you are a heavy transaction, you've got those flows that do 100,000 calls a day because you poorly nested your logic, then, you could incur additional costs here. But these are not being enforced today. So keep an eye on your meters. Other thing that's over here is the setup instructions. So if you do not like what I'm about to cover, well, then I don't know why you're watching my video, but they are in here as well. Like the Azure commandlets that we're going to run, right, in just a second, those are all in here so you can copy those. So this documentation is available, and I think it's a good companion. I'm getting the concepts of the real world at you. This is all the nitty-gritty stuff that you should probably look at a little bit. But there you go. So that's what I wanted to kind of cover as far as setting the stage. Why might you use this? Where might you use this? And, some of the nuance. I think the nuance is where we're going to learn along the way. So now what I want to do, we're going to switch over to my desktop. I'm going to walk you through setting it up in my tenant. And then once I get it set up in my tenant, right, so I have to go do my Azure side. So we're going to set up Azure. You're going to need permissions for that, right? And that's kind of covered here. I think I have this image over there as well. But so you have to cover the Azure side. Once the Azure is configured, then you go to Power Apps. You're going to configure it in Power Apps. And then once you configure it in Power Apps, then you can turn it on and have at it. So also keep in mind, you can turn this on and then blow it all away after the fact if you really hate it. So anyway, switch over to my desktop. We're already on my desktop, but let's switch over to the next recording, which is how to set all this up. Okay, to get started here, first thing we need to do is we need to go to portal.azure.com. And so from portal.azure.com, right, you'll have to have the right permissions. So I'll put the permissions over on the screen, but it takes pretty high level permissions to do this. So if you don't have those, you might have to engage whoever the account owner, the Azure owner is in your environment. So someone in IT most likely. Send them this video. Tell them to watch. Tell them to say hi to me. Hi. Anyway, so what you need to do is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over here to the subscriptions page. The reason is because we're going to need the subscription ID in just a second, and so it's easier to have it here. So now we found our subscription ID. That's where I want to put it. And so then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here at the top, and we're going to launch the Cloud Shell. I've never launched a Cloud Shell, but we're going to do it. And so it says, hey, do you want to do Bash or PowerShell? I don't know how to bash. I don't know what bash is, so we're going to say PowerShell. I technically know what PowerShell is, or bash is, but whatever. Okay, then now it says, hey, in order to use this, you have to have a storage account that's going to use a little bit. I'm guessing like pennies, but I have no idea. Fine, right? I just don't care. So now you can do show advanced options here, and there's a bunch of, like, you could really design it and set it all up. I don't care. So hide those. You, PowerShell, make this for me. So say create storage. Now this will take about 45 seconds in my experience, so a minute. So I'll pause for just that long. Hold on. All right, well, it made a liar out of me. It's more like 30 seconds this time. Anyway, what we want to do now is down here, right? The prompt is down here. It's flashing. It wants us to do something with it. So we're going to run some PowerShell to register our Power Platform provider. In order to do that, I'm going to put in the video description the PowerShell, so you can just steal it, or you can just type it all in if you're crazy. Now the weird thing is like you can't just say Control V in here. Like if you do Control V, it just freaks out. But what I figured out after some trial and error is I can right click here and just say paste as plain text, and it will paste it in. So AZ provider register -N Microsoft Power Platform double subscription. And then this is where you need this subscription right here. That's why I went and found that ahead of time. So I'm going to copy that as well. So Control C, then go back down here, right click again, paste this plain text. And that looks like what we want, right? Begins, always check, begins with a B, ends in a 0, begins in a B, ends in a 0. That's like my way of validating those long strings go. Anyway, we'll press enter. And so this will run. Now it says, hey, this is one of those things that runs in the background. And so you just have to kind of wait on it to finish. They give you a command to check it, but I've never been able to actually figure out what that's, is this a bunch of garbage? So what I figured out was better was now that that is running, was you go back up here and you can click on the little alerts and then say more events in the activity log. And what we should see is that it is not done it yet, right? So I have my storage account stuff, which we set up a minute ago, but it doesn't have anything about registering that provider in here. So I know it's not done. So then, you know, I'll periodically just hit refresh here and I'll just pause the video until it gets done, but it should be pretty fast. I'll be right back. Okay, so it took about a minute and a half, but now you can see that there's a thing here for register subscription. And if I expand it out, I can see that it has right here. So we go to JSON. And then if I scroll down and look and see, it is still, or it looks like it has succeeded. So I will take that as it is done unless I am proven otherwise here in a minute. So I feel good. We'll just do another refresh, right? Is there anything new here? There's not. Okay. So there you go. A couple minutes. We have now done all the scary Azure Portal-y stuff. So let's switch over to our, all right, so now we're over at make.powerapps.com because now we need to add the licensing we just set up, right? So what I want you to do is up here in the top right, click on the settings, and then we're gonna go over to the admin center. Now, once the admin center loads up, you need to go over here to policies, expand that out, and then billing policies preview. I don't have any because I haven't done this before, but this time it's gonna work. So we're gonna say new billing policy. We got to give it a name. So I've just been do something like Azure Pay video. There we go. Give it a name. It has to be so many characters. Can't have any special spaces. Blah, blah, blah. It's a bunch of the Azure Portal rules. Okay. So then we're going to say next. Now then say for build to Azure, you should see select your subscription here. If you don't, that means that the steps we did in the previous section, right, where we did all the Azure Portal-y stuff, didn't marry up. And so hopefully most of you just have one Azure account with one Power Platform. It's pretty straightforward. For me, I have 30-something Azure subscriptions and accounts I have access to. So it took me a couple of tries to find the right one. The key is that it needs to be the Azure subscription that is tied to this, your tenant here, right? So like the first one I tried to do it with my personal Azure account. Well, clearly those wouldn't connect as an idiot. If you're having a hard time figuring out like what Azure subscription you're after, over here in admin centers, you can use, you know, this Azure Active Directory. This will take you to Azure Active Directory. It's tied to your tenant. And then from there, you can click on the portal and kind of connect the dots. So hopefully you don't have that confusion, but I had some confusion there. And the last bit of confusion I have is when I go to select the subscription, I have two Azure subscription ones. Once again, it's chaos I live in. For me, I went to this first one or the second one here. It doesn't have anything set up. We know we set up the stuff. So if I go to the other one, it shows up. So that's how I was able to like, oh, I found it. So hopefully you don't have that challenges. I did. Resource group. This was that thing it set up for me. Sounds great. And so then it's saying, hey, what region are you looking for your tenant in? So if you have a bunch of different, environments and stuff, it's all kind of separated. You could have some challenges here. For me, all of our stuff is in the United States. So that all looks good. We're going to say next. Now you're going to see environments. Now, if you were paying attention a few screens ago, I have like 100 environments. So why do I only see 4 here? Because basically all you're going to see here are your production environments. You will also see your sandbox, but so production and sandbox, all you're going to see. The one that confused me the most is I don't see my default environment. So I was like, what? But that makes sense, right? Because this pay-as-you-go, it gets turned on at the environment level. And so they don't want you turning that on default and then running up these giant bills and screaming at them. So These are my 4, environments that are either sandboxes or production. And so I actually named my production one production. So I'm going to choose that one and say add to policy. Boom. And so now production is here. You could add multiple at the same time. I just going to do my one. So we're going to say next. This is saying, hey, here's all the things you just did. I know. And so now we're going to say create billing policy. This is going over to Azure. So you'll be able to hunt this down over in Azure and see it. So if you're Azure smart and you want to be able to go over there, assign this resource group to the department you're billing it back to, or assign it to a person, or manage that one, like this will show up as a resource over in your Azure. Here, let's see if I can find that real quick. One sec, or not one sec, but let's switch back over to my, okay, so over here in our Azure, right, we can now go subscriptions. We see our Azure subscription one. We can expand this. And so then now we want to go to resource groups, wherever the heck those are, right here, resource groups, PowerShell East. And so then now in here, if you say show hidden types, there's our Azure Pay video, right? So now you could manage this in all the ways you can manage your Azure resource groups around billing and stuff, right? Like that's outside of my skill set, but hopefully if you're an Azure person, you understand what you can do from here. But I got you to it. I connected the dots. That was my job. Okay. So now let's go back over to Power Apps. So now we've done lots of cool stuff, right? We've got all the pieces in place. So now I just want to make sure that I'm in my environment production. So here's my production environment. And so then now if I go over here to apps, there is my app. And so if we go here to settings, and so you can see that for this particular app, pay-as-you-go billing is on, right? So if this app needs, or if a user that uses this app needs a license, pay-as-you-go billing will hop in there and take care of that for them. So pretty cool, right? Like that's it. We're on. We're good. Yay! I can start pushing this app out, doing whatever I need to do, but we're now consuming the licenses. All right. I think that's good, right? That gets you all the pieces. Hopefully you got some foundational knowledge there. You walk through the setup. The setup, your mileage might vary a little bit, just depending on your Azure environments, but hopefully that gets you all moving and working through it. If you need any help getting it all set up, you can reach out to us at PowerApps911.com. We can't give you official license guidance. Only Microsoft can do that. But we can help you configure this, set it up, and talk to you about your different licensing scenario, right? We have thousands and thousands of customers. We've talked about licensing a lot. So we have opinions, we have thoughts, and we're happy to share those with you as well. If you have any comments, ideas, things you want to see me do different, things you want to see me go, whatever, right? Leave them below. I'm always reading my comments and trying to respond to the ones I can, and just making sure that, we're making the content that you guys find helpful. And I guess with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Hey, me again. Before you go, click on the subscribe button, right? Join the list of 100,000 plus people that subscribed already. Or if you need any help, right? Check us out at PowerApps 911. We do big projects, little projects. We do training. We do everything, and we can help you. Or if you want to see more videos, you probably do, then just click on the playlist above. Cool? Thanks, and have a great day.